Hi everyone, in this video we're going to try to understand and talk through AWS SQS FIFO. So AWS SQS FIFO supports 300 API calls per second, right? Yeah, API 300 API calls per second. So that is if you have only one message per second, that is going to be 300 messages per second. And the FIFO can support only up to 3,000 messages per second. So 3,000 messages per second is 10 messages per operation of like per API call. So if there are 300 API calls, then you can get up to you can process up to 3,000 messages per second, because 10 multiplied by 300 multiplied by 300 is 3,000. So that is the max, 3,000 messages per second. So if your requirement is only up to 1,200 per second, you don't want to over provision things. So how many messages per API call will you be provisioning, or you'll be initiating? So that will be, if you're going to try 200 messages per API call, so that is 200 two messages, 2 times 300 is only 600, and that is not enough for your requirement. So what you can do is increase. How about 4 messages per API call? 4 times 300 is equals to 1,200. That is the requirement. And if your requirement is lesser than 1,200, let's say 1,000 messages per second, that is if you're only going to provide 3 messages per API call, and then there's always 300 operations per second. 300 times 3 is only 900, and that is not enough for the 1,000 messages. That's why for 1,000 messages, you still need 4 messages per operation. So operation is like per API call. Is that correct? Let's do this again. Let's see if we really understand it. So AWS SQS FIFO supports up to 300 operation per second. 300 operation per second is like 300 API calls per second. 300 API calls to the SQS per second. Okay, so you can batch things. So per API call, so there are 300, right? So one API call you can send up to 10 messages per API call. So per API call is like the operation. So 300 API calls is 300 operation. One operation or one API call, you can send only up to 10 messages. Okay. And what else? I read about operations. So you can send like any amount of operations. So what if, but this is the max, right? So it's not true that you can have, what is a message group? What is, okay, so what is a message group? Let's ask ChatGPT. Okay, let's hear what ChatGPT explained to us. FIFO queue, let's compare this to our understanding. FIFO queue default throughput. By default, a FIFO queue supports up to 300 send, receive, or delete operations per second or transactions. I think that is this 300 API calls per second, right? This is not message per second, it is operation per second. Each send message, receive message, or delete message counts as one operation regardless of batch size. So batch operation, API, FIFO, queue support batch operations, send message batch, delete message batch, change message visibility batch. Maximum messages per batch is 10 per batch operation. Yeah, so this is it. Batch operation. Batch operation is like sending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 messages. Sorry, like messages per API call. So you're going to put all of this letters in one envelope, one AP, to an API call. API call here. It's like the mailbox. Put it in 10 messages, 10 letters, put it on the envelope. That is considered one operation. And then you can put up to 300 API calls per second. Only up to 300, and then here is only up to 10. Okay, so if you send 10 messages in one batch like this, that counts as one operation per, no, okay, not 10. That's why your throughput can multiply 10, 300 operations, like this one here, 300 operations times 10 messages is up to 3,000 messages. Okay, so adjusting the 3,000 operations per second. By default, FIFO queues are 300 operations per operations per second per message group. You can't increase throughput arbitrarily, but FIFO queues now support high throughput mode. With high throughput, you can reach up to 3,000 transactions per second per FIFO queue, still respecting messages. What is this? Message group. FIFO queues use message group to maintain order within a group. You can have up to 100,000 message groups per queue. Each message group serializes messages, so operations in different groups can happen in parallel. This is independent of the 10 messages per batch limit. The 10 messages per batch limit, batch operations are different from message groups. You can send up to 10 messages in a single send message batch operation. This limit is fixed even if you have 100 message groups. Each batch can include up to 10 messages from the same group or multiple groups, but ordering is guaranteed only with. I don't understand this. If you have 100 message groups, what is the message groups? Each batch can include up to 10 messages. Okay, from the same group. Where does that come into play, the message group? So this is per batch, 10 messages in one envelope, sending it here. You can only up to 300 operations here. So where is that message group come into play? Okay, so let's try to ask ChatGPT. Okay, if I have 10 messages, 10 letters, if I have this analogy, if I have 10 letters as the messages put into an envelope as the batch API call, then I can only have up to 300 API calls per second as the SQS fix setup, where how can I analyze the message group in this context? Okay, let's try to see if ChatGPT can give us ideas. Yes, your envelope analogy is actually perfect. Let's layer message groups into that analogy carefully. Envelope is equals to batch. Each envelope contains up to 10 letters. This is like a send message batch with up to 10 messages. 300 envelopes per second, that is 300 batch API calls per second, default Fifo. So max letters per second is 300 times 10 is 3000 letters messages per second. Message groups is equals to separate mailboxes inside the post office. Okay, so imagine your post office is the Fifo queue. Inside the post office, you have mailboxes labeled. Okay, so these are the message groups then. So this is one message group. These are the mailboxes. You can have infinite number of message groups. So imagine your post office. Inside the post office, you have mailboxes labeled A, B, C, which are your message groups. Ordering is only guaranteed inside a mailbox. Letters in mailbox A must be read in order. Letters in mailbox B must be read in order. Letters in different mailboxes can be delivered in parallel. Throughput with message groups. Fifo queue serialized operations per message group. Example, if you have only one message group, like this one, you have only one message group. You only have one message group. All envelopes batch must go one after another. Max throughput is 300. Yeah, 300 per second. So per second, next. So So it's like 1201 like this, and then 1202 like there's an if you're going to send another batch, so only 300 at a time. Okay, if you have 10 message groups, envelopes targeting different groups can be processed in parallel. Effective increases total queue output throughput. High throughput FIFO mode leverages this. Many message groups, higher combined throughput. Still 10 messages max per batch, but multiple batches in parallel groups. So instead of sending only here in A, B, C, D, you can send on multiple message groups. So that's it. Putting it together, envelope batch contains up to 10 messages per batch envelope. Message group, mailbox. This is the message group. Guarantees ordering of letters inside, so you can only order what is inside these mailboxes. So 300 operations per second, number of envelopes the post office can handle per second per group, so only up to 300 mailbox envelopes per second. Yep, and multiple message group, multiple mailboxes that can process envelopes in parallel. So if you have 100 message groups, each can process 300 envelopes per second. So 300 envelopes per second, but only in high throughput mode. Otherwise, the default FIFO limit of 300 operations per second is shared. All right, so that's it. I think we already got it now. Letters, envelope is the batch, mailboxes is the message group. And that's it. That's AWS SQS FIFO. All right, cool things. Bye bye.